where I was going to say, here's a piece from the boards that came around again a couple of days ago, and this was published in 2022. I remember we didn't talk about this on air, but I had this screenshot. A lot of these things, they pop off, and depending on where you are spending a lot of time on the internet, you'll find these screenshots, and they're good. Somebody on 4chan wrote this on November 27, 2022. They said there's a silent war happening between psychopaths and schizophrenics. Now you have to understand, schizophrenics in this is not from a clinical standpoint so much. All right, schizos in board talk. This is just those who question everything and do a little bit of digging. Schizos and autists, they kind of go together, where they don't just accept the official story. They want to check every nut and bolt until they find something that is not consistent. There's a silent war happening between psychopaths and schizophrenics. We know that the population numbers are very small for both groups. However, one group is more likely to become CEOs. Those are psychopaths. And the other is more likely to become homeless. Schizos. This is because schizos are good at pattern recognition and can notice the psychos. Normies, which is the vast majority of everybody out there, no matter whether or not they are, center left or center right, normies are incapable of seeing psychopaths in front of them. And psychos relish and dominate because of this. Schizos are able to know them on an instinctual level and suss them out in a way that normies never could. Thus, there is a constant demoralization campaign against schizos from the tyrant psychos who seek to use the population against their greatest natural enemy. If you know, you know. If you understand, I only had to read that once and you're like, I feel that. Now, how does this move into everything else we're talking about tonight? Well, like I said before, you start thinking about how the normies are being used as weapons. People are weaponized so that these greater battles can be waged throughout society. And that's really what it's all about. It's about being able to shield yourself behind an ignorant collective human shield, pretty much I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's what it'd be. To insulate yourself and to protect yourself behind a collective human shield of ignorant people. The lowest common denominator, as I was saying before, the lowest common denominator progressive, especially when you start looking at these halftime shows that are anything but diverse. There was not one white person on that stage last night. I mean, and in another timeline, a parallel timeline, I wouldn't, who would care? Just like in a parallel timeline, when you watch a sporting event and they say, oh, I think it was last Super Bowl, they said, and now, oh, wow, this is for the first time ever, an all-female fighter pilot flyover. If that was in the 1990s, we'd be like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, all right, there's some, our American girls are badass. We don't have the luxury of being that comfortable without this shit anymore. We know what diversity means and what they think they say it means. We know what this is about. We know the war that's being waged. It's an all-out war. And for progressives, that's really where a lot of this is coming from. The queen spider of it is actually because they have a lot of collaborators. The lowest common denominator progressive out there, they see these goofy things as art, like that goofy halftime show as art, because it's born from the thought that through self-sacrifice and destroying one's own nation and self-loathing, especially if you are a white liberal and you carry this white guilt thing on your back, they believe that through that they will elevate oppressed non-white people. Okay, people who progressives naturally view as broken and in need of saving. This is what Malcolm X was warning about with white liberals, essentially. So we get more of these goofy overtures that never match up with the oppression story. You know, a white supremacist nation would not be a place where an all-black group of performers would be up there getting worshipped at halftime at a game where most of the superstars and the rank and file are black. The same thing for the most of the actors in all the commercials in between breaks over there and in timeouts. And have it all be kicked off with these activist women baying at the moon with their so-called anthem. And we all know what that's about. Now, how can you be a preeminent cultural, corporate, and political power in the land and also be the most oppressed? And I stress cultural and corporate. Sponsored. It makes no sense. It's not possible. And it's insidious. It's an insidious plot that turns people into soldiers of fortune, where, you know, they're either making out with political kickbacks or they're becoming elevated in some other kind of societally privileged way. And because you're temporarily becoming a beneficiary of all this treatment, you're not really seeing what is being, you know, how the board is being situated to kill us all. That's the real big thing here. But if you point out that all this stuff that we have going on around us is unnatural and it feels staged and pointedly and acceptably racist, then the armies of normies descend on you. They descend upon you, my friends. The normies who have been trained and bred and conditioned by the psychopath class to serve as enforcers for the dystopia that they are helping build. That's really what it is. You remember we were reading Brave New World with Jay Dyer, and we went through, obviously earlier on in Brave New World, you go through all the different types of genetic classes that people are designed into in that very fixed and controlled society in Brave New World. You had the alphas and the gammas and the epsilons. And well, that is the same thing in the normie world. In the normie world, you have these beast of burden types, different activist classes of people. And even though they're all very different in their purpose, they are all kind of conditioned to protect the system at all costs and to reject anything that comes and butts up against the system and runs contrary to it. It's very, very stark if you look at it. Genetically, we're all the same, at least for now. But you can see how everybody's kind of broken up into class, and they're all triggered by the same things eventually. Because, like I said before, I went to a Christmas party. I think last year or the year before. Friends of the family, they are all center-right, well-to-do Republican types. And they were horrified when they heard that I very confidently believed that the election was not legitimate and it was stolen. They're like, you believe that it was stolen? These are people who voted for Trump twice and would vote for him again, but just believed he lost fair and square. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gents. They will all protect the system at all costs. They will. And the psychos use these normie hordes to seek out and crush their only true enemies, the schizos, those who see the scam for what it is. Diversity Incorporated is a scam. Environmentalism Incorporated is a scam. LGBT Incorporated is a scam. Now, coming to terms with those things as being scams doesn't mean that you are a gay-bashing white supremacist who loves to pollute the earth. It doesn't mean that. But the psychos have trained the normies to believe that you are, and that's all that matters. That's the hard part there. That's how they insulate themselves, and that's why it's so important to wake people up if there's a chance to do it at all. But it's a rough road, and most people are too far gone. And then when you do get very close to making inroads with certain groups or bringing people together, there's always something that galvanizes and then destroys it all. I don't know. That's when all the distractions come out. That's when everybody gets called back to their, you know how every Christmas time we talk about the truce, the Christmas truce, 1914, World War I. where you have the English and the German. They go out there and they're kicking. It's Christmas morning. It's an undeclared truce, and they're all playing soccer, and then all of a sudden they get called back by the sound of distant cannon fire. And all those people who made fast friends with each other, because ultimately they are just human beings and we have a lot more in common than we do different. They had to say goodbye and Merry Christmas, and may the, I don't know, best man win. What do we have to win from all this warring? I always ask those questions. So perhaps I missed out on some stuff. Perhaps you think I've got something a little bit wrong, or I went too far, or didn't go far enough. You can email me, because of course we're ending the show right now, and I'd love to hear from you. That's quite frankly podcast@gmail or protonmail.com, and or frank at quitefrankly.tv. It all goes to the same place now. We have to make a new one to make our mailing blasts a lot more efficient, but that's that. It all ties into the NPC phenomenon too, where we've been adding to that thread over the years. NPC behavior rears its head everywhere, but it's very strong in the normie crowds.